a certain amount of reverence to the Air Vice Marshal, who has probably seen 40 just a couple of years ago. A lot of people thought that the fighter pilot were dashing young men. In fact, many of them were quite a lot older than young men. They were around about the age of 30. Barder was 30, Sailor Man much the same age, and some of the superb Poles and Czechs were older still. Many of them came from what was called the long-haired auxiliary squadrons, but they were by no means amateur. This, of course, is the first year that the Royal Air Force have actually displayed its new training aircraft. Anybody who saw it before would have seen it flown by one of the pilots from Shorts who actually build the aircraft. It's based on the Brazilian Embraer Tucano, but has a 750 shaft horsepower Pratt & Whitney. It's got a four-bladed propeller. If you look at the Martini aircraft that are still in the static park, they're PC-7s. They have a three-bladed propeller, and that's exactly what the Brazilian Tucano has. Stressed up to about...
Their positions next to Nigel, while he himself concentrates on flying accurately and smoothly, giving the two wingmen a stable reference. Down out to the bottom of the manoeuvre, they'll pull up once more into what looks like another loop, but note at the top as the team changes direction to now fly parallel to us in the cloverleaf loop. Flying down away now to our left. The smoke, you can see, caused by diesel fuel being injected into the hot exhaust gases. Leading the formation now, Nigel Lamb, into a very steep wingover in that famous wartime Vic formation. Now back in from the left to perform a formation barrel roll, corkscrewing through an imaginary barrel lying on its side in the sky. The wingmen working hard to hold station. In fact, you could almost believe they were invisibly joined, couldn't you, on a single sheet of glass. Now watch closely on the way up as the formation pulls up into the vertical for a formation stall turn. Climbing vertically until the airspeed falls away and each aircraft is left almost hanging on its propeller. Then they smartly pirouette about their own axis, and now you'll see that the team leader, Nigel Lamb, is bringing up the rear of the formation as the team presents what we call the Toyota loop in T formation, the T loop. Well, Nigel Lamb, the current British aerobatic champion, isn't used to bringing up the rear, so he'll ask his wingmen to move aside while he muscles his way through to regain the lead of the straight ahead of us now to fly through the middle of the opposition flick roll. And
Grand Prix, British Bike Grand Prix champion, Truck Grand Prix, British Powerboat Grand Prix. In fact, he obviously specialises in those sort of things. Holds a professional commercial air display pilot's license. He's also an examiner for the Civil Aviation Authority for other display pilots. You'll be seeing him later again this afternoon, flying that rather splendid, one of the rather splendid yellow-painted Boeing Stearmans, part of the Crunchy team. He actually is the founder of Aero Superbatics. That's the company that manages a lot of these flying events, also involved with film and television contracts.
One thing, of course, about the Tiger, that they don't have to take very wide circuits, so they can keep it all very tight. This, of course, was in its day a basic trainer of the RAF, and I wonder how many people there are, either military or non-military people on the airfield today who learned to fly in a Tiger Moth. Many hundreds, I venture to suggest. There was a time when Leicestershire Aero Club themselves operated Tigers, and when they ceased to be part of the frontline training here, and we stepped up to Osters, believe it or not, the Tigers wouldn't sell, and they were on offer here for £75 each and still couldn't find buyers. But that's like everything vintage today, vintage cars or whatever it is. Values have changed. What must 9 of them look like?
as planned, so until we try to re-establish contact. So this is Proteus Extra 350 derived from the Extra 230, and the Extra comes from the founder, the builder of this aircraft, the Volta Extra, and the aircraft has been designed as a single-seat, unlimited level aerobatic aircraft. That's the 230. Then, of course, the decision was made that it would be useful to have to be able to train people, so the two-seater version was built. And, of course, needing slightly more power because of the extra weight to carry. Significantly larger than the 230, though it weighs basically about the same total weight. And one of the reasons they've been able to keep the weight down is because the entire wing and tailplane have been made of carbon fibre, which is very light but very strong. Prototype flew in August 1988, competed in the World Aerobatic Championships only 3 weeks later. And they're just running in for their first pass. See the first of the trio running in with the classic lines of the Spitfire. This one is Papa Sierra 915, one of the flight's original 3 Spitfires. Spent many years in the open as a gate guardian at RAF Brawley. Restored to flying condition by British Aerospace and was returned to the flight in April 1987. The aircraft itself actually had to be modified. It now has a Mark 58 Griffin engine. Most of the early Spitfires, of course, were powered by the Merlin. Battle of Britain. First aircraft went to the Royal Air Force in August 1938. By the beginning of the battle, there were 19 squadrons equipped with Spitfires, and production continued right the way through the war. In excess of 22,000 were built in 36. American was the first 8-gun fighter, designed by Sidney Cam, forerunner by the descendant of famous aircraft such as the Fury, the Hawk, and the forerunner of built by Vickers Armstrong in Chester, originally as a basic B-1 reconnaissance bomber aircraft, and it was modified for service in the Far East, but in fact never saw service as part of the Tiger Force because of the sudden cessation of hostilities in 1945. Modified for photographic reconnaissance and helped do the survey of Africa. It then returned to 103 Squadron, Papa Mike being 103 Squadron. It maintained the letter Mike, so they put a little 2 after it, so it became Mike Squared. And the last trip of the aircraft was to Cologne on the 24th of December 1944, then flown by Flying Officer Sachs. When the aircraft returned from that particular sortie, it was discovered that it had metal fatigue in the main spar and it ceased all operational flying. And a decision was made of the aircraft during night operations. And it also carries the badge of the City of Lincoln. The medals that are shown on the side are the DSO and DFC, and they were awarded by the crew when the aircraft actually completed 50 and 100 raids.
I've got them. Bloody twit.
On the other hand, for those who do like noisy aircraft, it occurs to me that this is our first jet of the day today. Normally we don't wait this long before our first jet aircraft, but if noise and the big metal is your forte, worry not, because there's plenty more to come later.
Now at the moment the aircraft's flying in very much in confidence. It uses a brake stop.
Yeah.
Be coming in from the left, wheels up. He'll be moving the aircraft from left to right, sideways transition, eventually turning through 180 degrees for a very, very steep climb away.
But I think you should tell everybody that it's coming from behind the crowd.
Yes,
and it's
coming
coming
from the left.
sneakily behind the hangar, in case everybody's looking towards the right or towards Ibrook and saying, where is it? It's just right over the hangar roof at this moment.
then reverted to the camouflage colours you see now for the low-level strategic role. In the Strategic Air Command Bombing and Navigation Competition in the United States of America back in the 70s. In any case, one final flight pass now from the right, the Vulcan display aircraft XH-558.
Where you're going and you can see where you've been, which is important if you've got someone chasing you. If you looked over your shoulder in the GR3, all you saw was the engine.
Sometimes joke about the GR5 and say that it's a big plastic kit, but in fact a lot of it is carbon fibre. A lot more hard points, so presumably you can carry an awful lot more weapons to the place you want to deliver them to.
That's right, you can carry...
Now, when Harrier pilots used to start to fly the aircraft, they used to do a fairly short course at Shawbury on helicopters to get used to the idea of hovering. Is that still done these days?
Yeah, a delightful course. It's a real pilot's course. It's designed primarily so to give you the aspect of sitting at 50 feet and not going forward, which is very unnatural for most fixed-wing pilots.
Do elevators actually move when you're in the sort of the hovering position, or is it just the puffet jets that are working?
Yep, just let Nick do his flyby here. The aircraft flying by, as we've just seen it, the control in all the three axes. The bigger wing also gives us a much better turning performance, as Nick's demonstrating now. He's doing about 360 to 420 knots, 400 miles an hour, but as you can see, he's more or less keeping it within the airfield perimeter. Quite in danger at any one point, but getting to about the stage where he is now, it sort of grabs his attention.
ordnance. JP-233, the airfield denial weapon, is specialised in tornado. And those are two pieces of equipment that, of course, the Tornadoes that have recently gone down to the Middle East will be carrying. Fairly easy to counter the sort of missiles that Iraq has at the moment. They're SA-2s, 3s and 6s. Wing swept fully back, fairly slow speed, which is unusual for a Tornado. Rear fuselage, German central fuselage. Ground mapping radar.
Yeah, look at this.
Sleep by day or night in all weather, searching out and looking for hostile submarines. It's got a number of different ways of finding the submarine. It's got a passive search mode. It's independent dispensable sonobuoys. Or it's got a large sonobuoy, an active sonobuoy, that's actually held inside the helicopter itself, and it can be lowered down into the water. So once the sonobuoys are picked up on the helicopter carrier, they can then take the submarine. The helicopter weighs about 10 tons. It's got an endurance of 5 hours. Normally operated by 2 pilots, 1 observer, and an operator. As quickly as possible to anywhere within NATO. On this particular occasion, of course, it's out of the Middle East. Carry a mixture of conventional bombs, 1,000-pounders, retard bombs, free-fall, laser-guided bombs, the BL-755 cluster bomb. And the Tornadoes for deeper interdiction attack sorties. It'll tell you that you're being looked at by a radar, and you can then use electronic countermeasures to try to jam it. It's got a very good low-level, low gust response, and as I was saying earlier, very, very accurate weapons delivery system. Concerned, which is a bit of a shame. Just running in now from the right for the final pass, the Jaguar 4. The aircraft's oscillation down. Its primary job is anti-submarine warfare. It's packed with sensors capable of detecting today's increasingly sophisticated submarines. Sensors include active and passive sonobuoys. They're carried internally. It's got a search water radar, which is incredibly good because not only will it identify a ship, but it's so accurate that you can actually tell exactly what sort of ship it is by looking at the radar. A wide range of stalls inside the weapon bay, including, of course, homing torpedoes. Surface targets, a Sidewinder air-to-air missile for self-defense. But I suppose really in peacetime the Nimrod's better known as search and rescue aircraft. For the final flight past the Nimrod from Tier 1 Squadron RAF Kinross.
Squadron has the 85%. In front of us, you can see the team now that is going to come in and over the field in a chevron, in a double wedge formation. Here it is. They are just over the field now, and there is going up for the